Anybody still with me? Is this a different stream? Oh my word. Man, I got booted out. But they didn't lock me out of my YouTube account. Oh man. Nobody's here. I have to start a new stream, apparently. Oh, Tammy's here. Ha ha ha. Is this a different stream or is this the same stream? Let me know in the chats, please. Is this a new broadcast or is it a second? Oh my gosh. Well, that knocks the hell out of the whole damn rhythm. Knocks about 100 people out that'll never come back. Just aggravating as hell. Mrs. B. Nice to meet you. Yeah, a lot of podcasters have been having problems. I am going to see about, I got an email from Kick. And I'm seriously considering something to do with that, where you go live there, they can't screw with you at all, and then you can forward the live to YouTube. And if I can get on Kick, anybody can get on Kick. And Rumble is just an absolute beating. It's like taking a damn beating. So anyway, I will do, I guess we'll see how far we can go here. Maybe, I guess this is what's showing up as my thumbnail with Trump at phone there with 9/11. I can't see what's going on. I got no idea. A pox and a thigh on these so-called powers that be. Well, I might as well mention this. Iran-linked media targets Melania with a KILL call. And I'm sure there's a couple of BOMBs hitting this very night with Melania's name on them here. This is from Melania. Kapow! Tasnim news agency, which is affiliated with Iran's Revolutionary Guards, published a video identifying locations reportedly frequented by the U.S. First Lady Melania Trump and urging supporters of the Islamic Republic to target her. The video also referenced President Donald Trump's son, Barron, with threatening language. The publication comes amid heightened tension between Washington and Tehran following weeks of escalating hostilities. So, yeah. You know, and part one of this broadcast, which unfortunately is disconnected from this one. Yeah, well, it's hard to pick up and talk about another broadcast. And I didn't get a chance to X some of the stuff out of the studio. And I don't want to put stuff up twice, just aggravating. But anyway, here's a little... Yeah, they want me to leave Battlefield. That's right, Greg. How you doing? Nice to see you here. Roland, nice to see you. Sparky's back. Tammy's back. Everybody's coming back. Mac is back. Scott's back. All right. So, yeah, Midas Trash Pail Network. Yeah, they tried to sucker punch the U.S. military during Lindsey Graham's funeral, which Zelensky attended and also Netanyahu attended. And most of the missiles were intercepted. I'll put up some stuff from CENTCOM about it. But here's Midas Trash Network. They get a live stream going. 1,400 people watching. Live. Trump stunned by Iran, surprise Iran attacks. It's like they're stimulating themselves, if you know what I'm saying. They're so overjoyed whenever something happens where they can try to say something desultory about Trump. They don't give a damn about our soldiers. They don't give a damn about what would happen if the mullahs get atomic capabilities. They just want something to happen where they can say Trump is a bad commander-in-chief. They are one of the most disgusting sights. Them and Occupy Democrats, okay? Absolutely disgusting. Man, I'd have some words for them. Here, I'll put Donald Trump back up. Because anybody who watches Midas Trash Bale Network, you got to get some red pills going on. Red pilling. So, anyway, I was putting something on the screen of import. And remember my last broadcast, I was posting stuff about former Pentagon officials talking about we're running low on ammunition. And I said that was actionable. I said that should be actionable. I don't care if they're retired or whatever. They're given encouragement to the enemy. All right, they're letting out information, whether it's true or not, that would embolden enemies. Remember me saying that? It was specifically about our stockpiles of weapons. Well, just before the sucker punch, the attempted sucker punch, based in Jordan, Iranian conservative newspaper, Kayan, do not fall into the trap of the truths proposed by Trump. The enemy's weapons arsenals are depleted, and a time has come to break the naval blockade. Yeah, like I said, they're paying attention. Returning to the illusion of negotiations would be a mistake. Persian Gulf has reached a dead end. Trump's retreat is not a result of strength, but a consequence of the depletion of missile stocks and air defense assets. Talking points that were put out by CNN, Axios, the New York Times, and others. It's not a result of strength, but a consequence of depletion of missile stocks and air defense assets. So they got emboldened. The enemy needs a, quote, recovery period. That was what a former so-called official Pentagon employee reportedly told, was a source, and told these enemy of the people news agencies. They need a recovery period to rebuild its military capabilities. Any reliance on Washington's diplomatic smile would be a mistake. Now is not the time to stop fighting, but a time to cement a new order through decisive strikes and the lifting of the naval blockade. Precisely now, when the U.S. Army is facing a serious shortage of ammunition, the path to achieving stable security lies through decisive military action on the ground. And within hours of this publication, they did their sucker punch move on us. That's why I was saying, for them to talk like that is to embolden our enemies. And could cost American lives. And Trump said he was going to knock the effing shite out of them for what they did. That's what they got. Let me see. I had a clip. Where'd he go? Which one's this? I got so many. I hate these clips that you can't see what they're. Let me see what this clip is. If it's not germane, I'll.
Yeah, guys. Good morning. President Trump reacting.
Here it is. Trey, what's his name? Trey Yates. President Trump reacting to the sucker punch. It's what I call it. Attempted sucker punch.
To that Iranian attack on U.S. forces overnight in Jordan, President Trump tells Fox News about Iran, "We are going to beat the effing S out of them." He went on to say, "We'll be hitting them hard. They're going to get a beating." So clearly the United States is going to respond to what the president described as a surprise attack. He says U.S. forces had just minutes to shoot down these incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. The president says he has reviewed video of the shoot down, and it was U.S. forces conducting this operation to defend that area. He said it was real time. They were calling out coordinates and ensuring that none of this incoming Iranian fire got through. I also asked the president about those U.S. and Saudi airstrikes against Iran-backed Iraqi Shia militias overnight. He says those strikes were coordinated with the Iraqi government. He called these Iran-backed militias a cancer on the world and says he is considering additional warnings against Iranian proxies and their link to the Iranian regime. The president also talked about his meeting yesterday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the Oval Office. He says it was a great meeting, adding he understands now. It appears that the relationship between President Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister is strengthening. And again, the president called that meeting in the Oval great. In terms of possible talks with the Iranian regime, the president says we're going to let them keep talking. Remember, the Iranians came to President Trump after 13 straight days of U.S. bombing against Iran, asking to meet about the Strait of Hormuz and their broader nuclear ambitions. And those talks, surprise attack launched against U.S. forces overnight. And again, President Trump telling Fox News we are going to beat the effing S out of them, and that U.S. strikes will take place against Iran in response to the surprise attack overnight against U.S. forces in Jordan.
Now, just prior to this, what is ongoing reports started coming out about 8 o'clock Washington time about a wider strike. Prior to that, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia did some limited strikes. What was this? This is Trey Yates again.
Also asked the president about those U.S. and Saudi airstrikes against Iran-backed Iraqi Shia militias overnight. He says those strikes were coordinated with the Iraqi government. He called these Iran-backed militias a cancer on the world and says he is considering additional warnings against Iranian proxies and their link to the Iranian regime.
Yeah, the Shia militias. And that was a joint operation with Iraq and Saudi Arabia. But what we're doing now is retribution, retaliation for the sucker punch during Lindsey Graham's funeral. And this was this post came up about 8 o'clock tonight, Washington time. Now the U.S. has launched ATACMS and PRISM ballistic missiles from Kuwait, striking multiple locations across southern Iran. Initial strikes targeted Abadan in southwestern Iran. Explosions subsequently reported in Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, and Kish Island along Iran's southern coast. Now, I could have sat there for an hour and gotten some video uploads. It's the usual, a 3 to 10 second picture of a bomb going off. Plenty of them, gobs of them. Here's one, aftermath. And so if they say the missiles are depleted, go ahead and act now, attack now. Their missiles are depleted. Well, they are getting the holy mortal, slapped out of them right now. That's one of probably hundreds of strikes, missile strikes, and well, what did CENTCOM put out? The Warthog. All right, where is it? Let me see. The A-10 Warthog. They're going to be here. They are. This was put out by Central Command. U.S. Saudi forces strike Iran-backed terrorist sites in Iraq. But you can bet that they're participating in this retaliatory strike. Who knows how long it'll go? Probably all night long. But this is a famous craft with a titanium shell around the crew. And these things have flown back to base looking like Swiss cheese. They can take so many hits and keep on flying as long as you keep the crew safe. I hope most people made it back. Man, I had a lot of stuff lined up to continue my last broadcast. So, well, that takes me out of, knocks me out of being able to build another 6,000 view stream. So, there you have it. At 5 p.m., 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time today, Islamic Revolutionary Guard forces launched multiple ballistic missiles from Iran in an attempt to surprise attack on U.S. forces based in the Middle East. All Iranian missiles were successfully intercepted. U.S. forces remain vigilant and in a high state of readiness. That was their man. The first half of my broadcast was about Fauchi, and I had more to talk about that creep. Now it'll be disjointed. Anyway, I'll just do my best. So anyway, here, let's see. Here's a Fox News alert. Oh, they're talking with, speaking of Fauchi, I'll get back to Iran in a minute. I had some footage where some of the tribes in the I mean they're ambushing roadblocks and mobile launchers, you know. So that's another story altogether. But here's Donald Trump talking about
in his diary entry saying something else publicly. For instance, the origin of COVID. He was saying it was from the wet market, not the Wuhan lab. He was writing something different. He was saying he never talked about closing schools. He's writing that he talked to Cuomo and he talked to Gavin Newsom about closing schools in New York and in California. So a tale of two different things, and he's going to be in front of Congress tomorrow testifying. What is your reaction to this? What is your takeaway?
Well, if you remember early on when it first came, I always said it came from the Wuhan labs. I never changed my tune on that. I think he said something different. He was a much bigger player in the Biden administration. I grew tired of him. He was, you remember that, you know, he wanted to close everything down. I allowed it to be up to the governors, and most or many of the Republican governors didn't want to close. And, I, you know, being somewhat of a federalist, the federalist theory is let the governors make the decision, and we let them. The blue states were mostly closed, and the red states were open, or they started to open very fast. So the Republicans actually did a very, very good job having to do with that, and we did a great job with Operation Warp Speed. I never got the credit that we should have gotten. I got a lot of credit for a lot of things, to be honest, the military, the rebuilding, all the things we've done, the economy, with the best economy in the history of our country in my first term. This is going to be better. As soon as this little situation gets worked out, I believe it's going to be better. It already is better. We're hitting, just today, we're hitting new stock market highs every single day. We're up to almost 80 of them, 80 days in a year and a half. 80 days hit new stock market highs. 401ks are the highest they've ever been. So, I mean, we have an amazing economy, and frankly, when this gets done, there'll be nothing to compete. We had the best economy of any president ever. in my first term. I believe this is going to blow it away.
Mr. President, you also get credit for Operation Warp Speed, which got a lot of critical stuff that we needed at the time to the American people. In this,
thank you, Steve, for that.
Oh,
Steve,
absolutely.
Thank you. You know, Operation Warp Speed is considered one of the greatest things that anybody has ever seen a president do, and a lot of people say that, but they don't say it publicly, and I appreciate you saying it.
No, you get credit.
And I like your son, okay? I like your son.
You always keep him on his toes, I'll just say that. So, Mr. President, so given the fact that, you were heavily invested because that was at the end of your first term with COVID, in his private journals, he has some very unkind things to say about you. He disagreed with your approach, was different than his.
Because he wanted to close everything down, and I didn't.
Absolutely. But given what you know now...
Had I taken his advice, the whole country would have been closed down, and much of the country was open because I didn't close it down. What I did do, though, is with Operation Warp Speed, is we got things done that nobody's ever seen in terms of all of the gear necessary, and we learned that the cupboards were bare. When I took over, we had none of this. We didn't have the ventilators.
I know.
We didn't have anything. We ended up becoming the #1 ventilator producer, and we were supplying ventilators to other countries by the time we got going, and we did a great job. No, but I was not a believer because he said everybody has to wear a mask. Then he said don't wear a mask. You remember it was a whole thing. Wear them, don't wear them. I said, what are you doing? He started off saying don't wear them. Then he said wear them. Then he said don't wear them. And I lost a lot of respect for him during the period of time. Right. But I inherited him. He's been there since the 1980s. I mean, he was a guy that was there that I inherited. And with time, I didn't mind him. I didn't find him to be bad, personally as a person. But I didn't agree with what he was saying or what he was doing. And when Biden came in, he inherited him, and he gave him a tremendously high position. And then he gave him a pardon.
He did indeed. And, I think we all thought there was a lot of science behind what he was saying and maybe not so much. But, Mr. President, if you would have known then what you know now, would you have fired him?
Well, I would have fired him. But, again, I didn't listen to him. So when he was with Biden, he was like the god. When he was with me, he wasn't even close. And I wasn't very close to him. I dealt with him very little. I didn't agree with many of the things he said. No, he wanted to close up everything. Look at all the states that remained open. Those states remained open. He wanted everything closed. And it just turned out that closing wasn't so good because...
Yeah, I'm looking to see if who all's in the chat. So those podcasts. We got to focus on one person at a time. Focus, focus, focus. The big players. Okay, the big players. And Fauci was mocking Trump behind his back while Trump was trying to calm a nation, frighten a nation, and stop the juggernaut of an economy that Trump was preparing for us. So anyway, I put a link in the chats at the 22-minute mark. If anybody wants to help the channel out, I have a link in the chats, kaboom, to buy me a coffee. And I want to thank everybody who went this week so far. We're coming to the end of the month. Pow! Mike and Bev and Wayne, kaboom, kaboom. Robin, Angela, pow, pow. Mike. Gang went by there, kaboom, kaboom. And I don't see, we had them in earlier, but I thank Gary, kaboom, kaboom, and Miss Mendersu for their Moabs that they leave when they go buy me a coffee. So I appreciate it. This is a totally viewer-supported channel. Yeah, Kathy, I used to say I can't afford to spend the night, much less pay attention. So, anyway, there's Miss Mendersu. She put a bunch of booms in and a cup of coffee. All right. So anyway, I've got so much in the studio that I already put on part 1. I changed the title on this stream to say part 2. So that might help people. Let me see if this is one I put up from Clandestine. Not yet. I hadn't put this one up yet. Let me read it. Why was Fauci pardoned for any offenses against the United States, which he may have committed or taken part in, beginning January 1st, 2014? Now, this stuff, folks, just because I'm reading it, it's not a video, this is important stuff. That's precisely when Fauci and the Obama administration offshored U.S. gain-of-function research to black sites in Ukraine. Hunter was pardoned beginning the exact same day, January 1st, 2014, just before Metabiota received a massive Department of Defense contract for operations in Ukraine. Remember Hunter Biden's Metabiota? Hunter Biden was the bag man or proxy for Obama Biden's corrupt dealings in Ukraine, to include their nefarious biological activity at Metabiota. All of this made possible right after the maiden coup. How many times have you all heard me talk about the maiden coup? Whoops. And I even spelled it. Oh my goodness. Some people were burned alive during the Ukraine so-called uprising. That happened in the Odessa region, the area that's being bombed right now by Putin. But anyway, in early 2014, and the beginning of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and the annexation of Crimea. See, people talk Slava Ukraine and stand for Ukraine. They don't know the whole story, nowhere near it. Fauci and Biden administration admitted their guilt when they issued these pardons. And they tried to cover their tracks. Whatever they were doing in Ukraine is what they fear most. And all signs seem to point toward Metabiota. Kathy, why didn't you just misspell that word? Did I get in trouble for medical stuff being put in the chats? Can you change that? Fauci estimated the CV-19 rate to be much lower than what he told Congress. Not only that, but what he told the President of the United States, trying to get him to shut down the economy and to scare the people. Millions are going to die. The face masks were discredited for over 100 years when they used them during the Spanish flu. It was scientifically proven back then that wearing masks only made things worse and created other diseases, fungal and bacterial infections of the lung. But they wouldn't even let you discuss that. Thank you, Kathy. Just like we can't discuss what Kathy is trying to point out, that a certain type of treatment makes you sick. I got to be careful. The Trump administration is exposing the truth about DNC CCP fraud in the 2020 election, while simultaneously exposing the truth about Fauci and COVID. This is not an accident. These two things are connected. The people are being briefed and prepared to be told that COVID was a man-made virus released intentionally. as part of the broader plot to remove Trump from office. If I disappear, I'll be on Rumble and Kick. The deep state created and released the virus as part of a regime change operation. This was the contingency plan after their Russiagate Mueller plan failed. The virus, along with mainstream media fear and panic, paved the way for social distancing. Quote, social distancing. Social distancing paved the way for emergency. The mass mail-in ballots paved the way for unprecedented levels of fraud and mail-in ballot dumps in swing states in the middle of the night, which favored Biden. It also normalized the notion of mail-in ballots. Okay? It's abnormal. COVID, in conjunction with election fraud in 2020, is arguably the greatest crime ever committed against humanity. And all of it was done to stop Donald Trump from exposing and obliterating the deep state and the crimes they already committed, like uranium and then the number one. See, I have to break that apart because I know I'll get in trouble if I say that all together. What we're witnessing now is Trump and his administration slowly preparing the public to swallow this mammoth-sized red pill. It must be done. The people need to be told. They need to be made aware, whether they like it, want it, or not. So, where shall we start? With the creep, Dr. Fauchi. Here he is. What's Robert Kennedy got to say?
He's going to testify in front of Rand Paul's committee this week. He has immunity against all of the things that he did prior to President Biden signing, or the electronic pen signing his pardon, but he could perjure himself now. So there are many things that he said that we know are lies, and Rand Paul presumably is going to ask him about those things. And if he lies again, then he could be subject to perjury prosecution.
Well, that's obviously before Bobby Kennedy knew that he was going to take the fifth. Does that open up that his pardon could be considered rejected and voided? Is it something that's going to be again before the Supreme Court? He accuses Fauci of hiding lung health issue after CVID vaccine, right? Right, Lori? That's what you were pointing out. Health and Human Service Secretary Robert F. Kennedy is accusing former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, of concealing a serious lung condition he experienced. And we know there's a lot more than the lung condition. There's things called myo is the first part, and carditis is the second part. Fibrous, right? Fibrous blockages. I can't say the word CLOT. That used to get me in trouble too, remember? I'm trying not to take chances. All these things. Why did that one company, was it Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson, remove their vaccine altogether? Why? Let me see what this is. There he is, Dr. Evil, Fauci invokes Fifth Amendment during Senate testimony, refrains from answering questions. This was ABC. And you read the comments. Oh, Trump is just trying to persecute him. He's a national hero. Man, how many of these people are being paid to post that kind of garbage? Donald Trump put this up. Fauci told everyone he's a great basketball player, so I assumed he would be easily able to throw a ball to home plate. It turned out that he was a phony on that, just like he was on everything else. See below. He is a terrible athlete, and this is, by far, the worst throw I've ever seen in years of watching first pitches. President Donald J. Trump. Let me see if this got music.
Fauci, when you're ready, it's your pitch.
I think it's got music.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
What a dope. What a jerk. What a stupid looking throw. Did you see that? I don't want to insult women. I say threw like a girl. Let me play that again. No, he didn't throw like a girl. He threw like a, what did he throw like? Here you go. Watch it. Girls can throw better than that. I don't know what you got. I got to cut my sound back on or I won't have any. What a little creep. Then he took his mask off and sat in the stand with no mask. And there we go. I got sound back. All right, let me get this down. Oh, my studio is cooperating. But anyway, now we have Wordy Dird. We had a couple of wordy dirds today from Trump. He said he's going to knock the effing you-know-what out of Iran. But here we go again. And, I can't blame him. But I'll just play it.
My rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
They were dragged out of that stadium and arrested. Those policies were put in place because you had moronic politicians that listened to the words of a megalomaniac who was more interested in having met a Kardashian than the suffering of the American people, and that is you. Your advice to communities like that, to idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy.
Yeah, where'd the video go? It just disappeared. That's weird. Yeah, makes you want to kick him right square in the pants. He won't be able to walk down the street. Well, it's because he's going to have bracelets around his ankles and his wrists. If he doesn't go to jail, nobody's going to jail. If he doesn't, well, I better not say it. But anyway, here's Josh Hawley getting some digs in. Dr. Fauchi, you know, people ended their lives. I can't say the you-know-what-aside word, but they took their own lives because their businesses were destroyed. People were fighting, family members. Those of us who knew what he was doing, knew that they were trying to destroy our economy and disrupt Donald Trump's presidency. We knew it. And we didn't want to play that damn game. And we ended up losing friends and family members because of this little dried up son of a biatch right here. And his co-conspirators, who number in the hundreds, if not thousands.
For a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder. Volker says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to COVID. He sends this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award. And he got it because he used federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder. Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine's Award, you've got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I'd qualify? And you got cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use, federal employees, so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you. And then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want. He wants the money. He wants it. We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again, using federal email to pressure the agency's own ethics people so that you could get money, so that you could get rich. And it violated the law, didn't it, Dr.
Fauci?
Well, I see where he's getting at.
It violated the law, didn't it?
That's just a tip of the iceberg.
On the advice of
It wasn't about his greed or his pride. Of course, that he's taken care of that a long time ago. Okay? Hanging in there for 50 years. Started just before the AIDS epidemic, remember? He's been around that long, since the Reagan administration. The real crime here is participating in this accelerated 16-year plan that they had to enslave humanity, and that's all going to be borne out. Yeah, Todd, I see what you're saying. Rand Paul didn't say nobody could testify. He said the lawyer for Fauci had not been recognized. Fauci was being badgered, I guess you'd say, rightfully so, and encouraged and challenged to answer questions, Todd. What Rand Paul is saying is that the lawyer can't sit there and be Fauci's mouthpiece. And if he's going to keep interrupting and keep making a scene, he was going to have to leave, and he ended up kicking him out.
Were you ever made aware of gain-of-function research on monkeypox being conducted at the National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure Center and back at Fort Detrick?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully
decline to answer based upon my...
Oh, this is the clip about monkeypox. Okay, so they're covering a lot of bases.
my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, did the CIA ever transfer funds to NIH under an interagency agreement?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Fort Detrick, isn't that where the white powder came from? That strain, what was the name of that? I told you all that I met an old fella that opened up some mail in D.C., was working in a government office. And remember that? What was that stuff called? Shoot. Anyway, he inhaled some of it, ended up spending, he may still be alive, I don't know. But he'd been in a nursing home for 10 years. He could barely walk from the after effects. And they traced that powder substance, that it was a bacteria or something. They traced it to Fort Detrick. And that's what Rand Paul was just asking about, the monkeypox coming out of Fort Detrick. I'm talking about ricin anthrax. That's right, Todd. Yeah, ricin's a poison. But yeah, it was anthrax being mailed. Wanda, how you doing? Anthrax. Yep. Thank you for misspelling it. And Todd misspelled it too. Great. Hi, MS. How you doing? So anyway, yeah, I met a guy who was a victim of that. And a lot of people were. And it was developed in Fort Detrick. And here you see Dr. Fauci. He may be in so much more trouble than most people know. We know he's in a hell of a lot of trouble. Here is a dopey lawyer sitting next to Fauci. And watch him. He'll try to run his mouth. He'll make hand motions while Rand Paul's telling him, you're not recognized. Your client needs to answer, not you.
But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered, for a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Don't make a big deal out of it. Just get the hell out. You're wasting our time, you greaseball.
Still have the advice of the other half a dozen
Attorneys that he brought along today.
Yeah, put egg in your shoe and beat it. Here's Ron Johnson. Trump posted this clip. Drug adverse event comparison. You see HCQ there, right? You see Tylenol. You see stuff I can't say, Ivor, and then Mectin. All right.
The American public believe 24% of the American public believe they know somebody who died of the experimental gene therapy. So again, I was certainly interested in asking you whether or not you were following this as carefully as I was. It's not my responsibility to follow safety surveillance systems, but I did. And by the way, when I published, this is actual government information. When I published it and people had me on their shows, they would be censored by Facebook. They would be deplatformed. I think largely at the behest of the actions you took to make sure that disinformation wasn't spread. This wasn't disinformation. This was the truth. So I was going to ask you whether you knew Dr. Marks. I think you do know him. He's the head of CBER. He's the man who is in charge of approving vaccines and surveilling for the safety. My investigation shows that on March 1st of 2021, less than 3 months after the emergency use authorizations, he was warned by Dr. Anna Scharsman, data mining expert, that the algorithm they were using to analyze VAERS data was going to hide in mass safety signals. 26 days later, and 3 months consecutively after that, they did data runs with a new algorithm that unmasked those safety signals. They showed dozens of safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, cerebral artery occlusion, basal ganglia stroke, agonal rhythm, Bell's palsy, and pulmonary infarction. Your diaries now show that you actually suffered pulmonary infarction in, I think, probably June 2021. I was just wondering whether it ever went through your mind that maybe that injection, all those boosters you took, might have caused that. And the question I was going to, and I'll ask this question, were you ever made aware of the fact that Peter Marks was warned that the algorithm was going to hide the safety signals? And were you told that senior FDA officials were given shown dozens of safety signals associated with the COVID injection?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah. Were you told, you creep? Did you withhold that stuff from the people? And the answer is yes. Will the pardon hold up? Will they start to check on the wife? Let's see what this one is.
Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards, but now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time, I don't know. But what I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, here we go again, just chalking it up to personal hubris and pride and greed. Let's not forget the connection to a bigger cause of destroying Trump's presidency and driving the American people into a tyrannical construct. So, but you can get people to do your dirty work because of their pride, because of their greed. What was the mens res, actus reus? What was going on in Fauci's mind? Was he part of the plan, or was he a dupe? Let me see what's going on in the chats. Yeah, really, some of the things he's guilty of, it doesn't matter why he did it. But the finer points of the law are that your intentions make a difference. What was going on in your little pea brain. So anyway, I was talking about in my other stream, part 1, I had touched on the Iranians, right? Well, this is not from what's going on tonight, of course. This is, I'll give them one thing. They put their martyrs out there, right when they get blown up. American Saudi airstrikes on Iraq kill 5 IRGC advisors overnight. Advisors. Well, General Jack Keane was saying yesterday, it's time to start going after the Republican Guard specifically. Specifically, go after the individuals, the leadership of the Republican Guard. They're the hardheads. And that's what's going to be happening. How much you want to bet? Let's see what this post is. Warsaw has come that Ukraine will sooner or later lose its western territories. Remember, Russia's coming from the east. The western territories, which belong to Poland, Romania, and Hungary before World War II. People that have argued with me in the past, I said Ukraine was never a standing nation. It's to this day not recognized in the UN charter or in the NATO charter as a separate country. For 1,000 years, it's been booted in between Germany, Russia, Poland, Romania, Hungary, different parts of it. Poland said, we unequivocally reject this false speculations of Vladimir Putin regarding the supposed division of Ukraine and Poland's involvement in it. This is a cynical attempt to provoke antagonism between allies. Poland has had and will have no territorial claims against Ukraine. Polish Foreign Ministry spokesman, whatever his name is. Well, we shall see. It's only been contested for 1,000 years. Let's see. Here we have. This is from last night. U.S. and Saudi Arabia. Now, these are Iran-centric reporters, remember. U.S. and Saudi Arabia, aggression on Mosul, Iraq. This is the Shia militia they're going after. U.S. Saudi airstrike struck Karbala, Iraq, which paved the way for this action we're seeing tonight. I'm sure there'll be a lot of film and a lot of reports. New, Iran is to receive a first shipment of up to 400 Chinese man-pads within weeks. Well, the first report I heard about China being involved was this. I'll read the other report in a second. China to send rocket launchers to Iran. Remember, Trump was saying, well, I got an understanding that they're not going to do that. And I got a good relationship with Xi, right? The Telegraph. China is sending 400 rocket launchers to Iran under a new deal underscoring their increasing military ties. And I said, rocket launchers? Rocket launchers are a set of rails and a mobile launch pad, not actual rockets. Well, apparently they were sending actual man-pad rockets, is what the accusation is. As Tehran moves to rebuild air defenses following months of conflicts with U.S. and Israel, according to Reuters. The contract, valued between 60 and 70 million, covers 300 to 400 man-portable air defense systems, including QW-12 and FN-16 missiles, signed via Hong Kong-based military intermediary Zhongqing Baoshang International Investment. They seem to know a lot of details. Deliveries are planned by air from Urmqi, transiting through Pakistan. Both Beijing and Islamabad deny any involvement. China's foreign ministry called the reports completely groundless. Iran's foreign ministry did not respond. Harder to target than fixed batteries, making them valuable for protecting dispersed military and infrastructure sites. Yeah, they pretty much carry them around like a bazooka. Oversized bazooka, but a bazooka nevertheless. So anyway, we're going to keep an eye on that. Is a plane going to get shot down coming from China? So anyway, we've got Fauci being exposed. We got all this action in Iran. We got Ukraine involved. Zelensky said he had the most productive talk with Trump after Lindsey Graham's funeral than with any other U.S. president. So for whatever that's worth. Also, we covered where Ukraine sank an Iranian ship, okay, in the Caspian Sea, remember? And the Iranians were saying they were going to retaliate against Ukraine. Now is Iran demands compensation as Ukraine calls strike accidental. Iranian Foreign Minister Saeed Abbas Araghchi said Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy, whatever his face is, assured him the attack on an Iranian ship was unintentional and that Kiev is not seeking escalation. Araghchi said Iran also does not want tensions to rise, but stressed that any attack on Iranian citizens or interests is restitution for the losses caused by the incident. So that is softening the threats made by the Republican Guard where they were going to send ballistic missiles into Ukraine. So I don't know if you want to call that progress or what. So on top of that, we've got Elon Musk on probably one of the most far-reaching platforms in the world, X. What does he put out? Oh, who is this? Ilhan Omar? She wants Sharia law in America? Yeah, she does. There she is. And there's Elon Musk. Christine Aguirre put up, Elon Musk backs President Trump and says Somali migrant Ilhan Omar is a traitor who should be deported. Ilhan Omar is a traitor the United States, should say to the United States, and must be expelled. What else did Elon have to say? Obama sent Khamenei $1.7 billion. Biden sent him $6 billion. Trump sent him to hell. All it took was a new president. So that hopefully is going to stoke like-minded comments. People got to break the ice, you know. Speaking of breaking the ice. Oh, ha ha. Donald Trump put this up. Great Commonwealth of Kentucky has had a great impact on Senator Rand Paul, who will be running in 2 years, 24 months. He's been terrific lately. President Donald J. Trump. So in other words, you want to end up like Massey, Rand Paul? You better step up to the plate. Here's Trump again. Does anybody have any idea how much money and prestige the United States Supreme Court has cost our nation with their negative rulings on birthright citizenship and tariffs? The answer is trillions and trillions of dollars. President Donald J. Trump. How many times have we discussed it? I guarantee you, if Trump didn't have to do those refunds on tariffs, that every American, qualified American, would have received a couple $1,000 already. And then you see how much people would start liking tariffs. And the people who say tariffs are a tax on Americans, you're out of your mind. Like I said, how many people are buying Italian sports cars and suits? Not many. How many people are buying French wines? I know, the only thing I know people are buying is cheap crap out of China, India, Pakistan, slave nations with slave wages making cheap garbage. And even then, what's a 20% tariff on an item that's 99 cents? And your country isn't worth defending for 99-cent tariff on 20 cents? That's no tax. Bring manufacturing back to our nation. Mamdani, what's Kamdami doing? How's news? New York City Mayor Mamdani excludes JEWs from judicial appointments panel. No, he only wants to have people who believe in Sharia law, right? Speaking of that, these notifications I get, what was one of the latest ones I got? It had one of these characters where they're a judge in our country and you can't pronounce their last name. And they're doing things to inhibit President Trump. CNBC, Trump DOJ to ask Supreme Court to toss $83.3 million defamation award to Eugene Carroll. The $5 million one was for slander. This is the one that Kaplan shoved through illegally. And my theory will be put to the test. Will the Supreme Court say, uphold what it says in the Constitution, that Congress shall pass no ex post facto law, no law after the fact. And I contend that, what's his name? The Hobbit, George, I see his face. What's his name? And the LinkedIn guy pushed to have the law changed on statutes of limitations. And I say that's a violation of the Constitution. Nobody's brought it up. Will the Supreme Court bring it up? I believe so. And you can say, if they do, you can say, you heard it from Mountain Man first. The Hobbit, what's his name? But anyway, where's that so-called judge? I'll have to find here he is. Tell me if you can pronounce his last name. Federal judge rejects DOJ attempt to obtain unredacted New Jersey voter rolls. Conley, yes. Thank you, Roland. Now, why would this judge prevent the federal government from seeing voter rolls that were engaged in a federal election? That's not prohibited. That's something, it's investigating crimes. Is this that judge's last name? Where is it? Where'd it go? Oh. Gabami or something like it. Some kind of crazy last name from the Middle East. What's her name? Nikki Sherrill? She says she's not going to provide the lists, even though the DOJ is demanding it. And this judge will be overturned also. When in reality, he should be looked at very strongly for abusing his office for the purposes of obstructing justice. That's the way I look at it. Did you all hear there was an earthquake in Japan? A 7.1 earthquake in Japan. Here's somebody was driving by a factory, and I guess a gas line blew out because the side of the building explodes. Watch. A boiler or a gas line. But anyway, yeah. I'll just look through the chats real quick. But anyway, yeah, Mom Dami, he's not making any friends. But hey, while they're on top, they're going to strike as hard as they can strike. Let's see. What are U.S. storms out of UN after being compared to North Korea? I got in my title and treaties broken. United States diplomats stormed out of the United Nations after the French compared their country to North Korea. What do you do when treaties are broken? NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They're supposed to come to the aid of any member who is attacked. How many times has a treaty been broken where nobody came to our aid? How many treaties do we have with France, the UK, that involve things like election interference, that involve things like illegal spying on the American people? What about the Steele dossier? Was that a violation of a treaty? And wait a minute. Something else I forgot about to mention because I got knocked down on my first stream. Andrew Tate is sitting in jail going to get sent to the UK, right? Because we have a treaty with them. Is Anthony Fauci subject to being shipped off to another country that we have a treaty with for crimes he committed against the other country? Is that why he's keeping his mouth shut on top of everything else? Are we going to break a treaty to protect the likes of Fauci? Oh, you got a pardon. Okay, Anthony. But we just got a warrant from Interpol. That's your international gain of function activity halfway around the world. You committed crimes against other countries. And we have a treaty that says we will cooperate with your prosecution. But you're off the hook about what you did to Americans. But let me tell you something. You will hang just the same way in another country as you would here. Okay? I don't care where the short rope and the long drop happens. I don't care where it happens. I just want it to happen. So, is he vulnerable to other countries because of treaties? And what countries are dancing on the head of a pin because Trump has got them dead to rights for past violations? Here she is. Here's Mickey. Software vendor disputes governor's glitch claim. Says state approved foreigners. They publicly dispute who was supposed to catch an error that allowed thousands of non-citizens to register to vote, raising direct questions about the integrity and the safeguards of the elections. Well, the buck stops with you, baby. Especially if you've got, up like a rocket. CNN data guru says Lindsey Graham's sister is now the clear favorite to win the primary. Remember I played that other guy? I said, what the hell is he doing? Was he a rhino in waiting? President Donald Trump's endorsement is still a golden ticket in Republican Party primary races. CNN stats guru Harry Anton says. So she's, she had a 14% chance of winning Friday. Trump gives her his blessing, and now she's at 80%. The people trust Donald Trump. Here's what Department of War put up. The will to keep fighting, the resolve to win. A war fighter's determination. Stay locked in. And that's what we got to do, folks. Stay locked in and hold the line. And if you're watching this broadcast, please know that there's a part 1 that I would like you to go to my channel and find so you can watch it. Because I was like butter, I was on a roll, and I was unceremoniously hampered in my efforts. This was one of the pictures I wanted to put up. It's funny how these leftist so-called content creators and influencers were zeroing in on Barron Trump out of the blue because that dopey, degenerate, what's his face? At the same time, you got Iran coming out with this stuff. They released that video threatening to target Melania and Barron Trump. They never seem to be at cross purposes, do they? Left. Here's Donald Trump again. It was a rigged election we must learn from. Never again. A new Daily Mail. JL Partners shows that fewer than half of American voters, 48%, now believe Joe Biden definitively won the 2020 election. Well, that's encouraging. But I mean, see how disconnected? The media can make people disconnected by their power to ignore, their power to twist words, their powers of omission, lies of omission. Amongst Republicans, 70% believe Trump won. Only 15% say Biden did. Among Democrats, 80% said Biden won. 10% claim that Trump did. Wow. I mean, what a split. When you lay it right out there in front of their flipping faces. Well, anyway, folks, I'm going to close out on this oddball. Something for you to cogitate about. Is that his son, Alex Jones's son? Now, I've got another almost half an hour on part one. So make sure you go by part one and take a look at it concerning Fauci and my other topics. And I'm going to put in my chats a link for Buy Me a Coffee if anybody wants to help the channel out. This is totally viewer supported. I'm not monetized on YouTube. And even if you just want to go by and see what the page is all about on Buy Me a Coffee, and I appreciate everybody that stopped by to help out with the channel. Anyway, I should be broadcasting tomorrow night. Now, this broadcast, I didn't get to thank. The first broadcast, I thanked everybody who went to buy me a coffee, and then I got cut off. So I got to make sure I get it in the same one. Mike and Bev, Wayne, Robin, Angela, a newbie, Mike, for going by Buy Me a Coffee and helping an old man out. I appreciate it. And Miss Minder, Sue, and Gary for their here's Alex Jones turning on Donald Trump. What do you make of it? Let me know something in the comments. What do you make of this? So anyway, folks, what I always say, thank you for spending your precious time with me. And I should be broadcasting tomorrow night. If you're subscribed, you'll know when I go live. So you all have a great night. Enjoy this video. This is Mountain Man, over and out.
The big issue is how to stop Trump. And we have to have Congress go for the war powers. They've 3 times tried to vote war powers. They're supposed to authorize a war. This is a war. They're getting the draft ready. If this isn't a war, nothing's a war. I mean, this is absolutely out of control. Fifth Amendment, impeachment, whatever needs to happen to get this front and center, to get control of our country. It's impeachable alone that the president supported the NDAA. I agree with Tucker Carlson and all of the people that voted for this to merge us with the foreign military. It actually says it in Section 219, clear as day. Need to be in Nuremberg-style trials. I mean, this is unbelievable. And if you think it's crazy now, imagine what's coming with this. They want us in a total war so they can censor and take our freedoms and nationalize everything and push us aside with AI, total liability, immunity, and protection. This is a disaster. We are facing tyranny, but the public's awakening. We've got to come together and transcend left and right, and we have to say no to an expanded war that will definitely destroy the economy, kill a bunch of our troops. They're preparing a massive ground invasion.